The hospital toilet. There's a hospital in the town I live in. Many people say that it's very haunted. As for someone whose greatest fear is ghosts, I do my best to stay away from the hospital. But no matter how much I try to avoid that place, there came a day when I had to sleep at the hospital. It was the time of a dengue epidemic at our town, and my baby brother was one of the dengue patients. My dad was on a business trip at that time, so only Mum stayed for the night. After some time, my brother recovered, and my mother wanted to go back home for a day and requested me to stay in the hospital instead. I tried to say no, but my mum wouldn't take no for an answer. The hospital was very old, and without years of maintenance, it looked very unwelcoming and worn down. The worst of them all is that the toilets are in a separate building outside the main hospital building, and the morgue was just beside the restrooms. When I got to the hospital, the sun had already set. The main building was only dimly lit by yellowish lights, and the lights at the toilets were flickering off and on. I had nothing to do at the hospital, so I spent most of the time scrolling through my phone. When I noticed the time, it was already midnight. And then suddenly, the worst thing I could imagine happened. My tummy started to ache, and I tried to suppress the urge to go to the toilet, but I couldn't. My urges overwhelmed my fears, so I went to the toilet warily. As I walked across the dark corridor to the toilet with flickering lights, my heart began beating wildly. As soon as I reached the toilet, I entered one of the empty stalls immediately. Just as I got in, someone entered the stall beside mine. The person opened the tap after closing the door. Anyway, I felt relieved to have another person at the toilet with me. I kept scrolling through my phone as I was sitting on the toilet seat. Not long after, water from the open tap from the stall beside started flowing into mine. "Hey, the water's overflowing," I said to the stall beside me, but there was no response. I was very annoyed, so I decided to finish my business quickly, but the lights started flickering and suddenly went out. Startled, I quickly turned on the flashlight of my phone, but then the lights came on again, and suddenly I saw a shadow of someone standing in front of my toilet stall. I frightenedly wondered why he was standing there when there are other empty stalls. I didn't dare to leave the stall, even though I'm done with my business, and I kept my eyes on the shadow without even blinking. Lights began flickering once more, and suddenly the shadow behind the door disappeared into thin air. Shivers ran down my spine, and I was terrified. I braced myself and opened the door and quickly exited the stall. I noticed that there was nobody in the restrooms except me. That moment, I knew that I've been haunted by a ghost. So I promptly left the building. When I was at the exit of the restroom, I heard one of the doors slam shut. I looked back and saw a dark figure staring at me from the slightly ajar toilet's door.